Well, we are back, and I'm in a wonderful mood today because England scored in the last minute, Jude Bellingham with an overhead kick. So I'm going to get to it. We'll probably still have a horrendous performance against Switzerland in our next game, but for now, very excited. So let's jump into a track called Voodoo off the album that just came out a week ago now. And yeah, I love this song. We mentioned it in an interview we did, but basically it had original production from Day Of that we switched out completely, like really quite close to when we were meant to turn it in. So I'm going to take you kind of through what we've done on this one and how we've kind of blended like synth elements with guitars and like just take you through the whole thing. But this is the vibe of the track. Let me just jump in.
That you'll be so engrossed. I'm your voodoo, tell me what to do. Stick another pin in it. Did you dip it in gas to throw on a match? Cause all I ever do is burn up for you. Whatever I wake up with pain in my stomach.
Okay, so to me, like the main elements, we've got electronic drums primarily, which is the one difference between this one and most of the other tracks on the record is like we have deliberately, obviously, electronic drums. So we've got layered here. We've got a side chain, so this has no output, but I just always like putting a side chain in the track, just so if I have anything that needs to bounce, like off the kick pattern, I just copy it into the side chain, and I always know that I have this available as a signal to send. So let's just see what else we got here. So snare and bouncy hats. So pretty simple, probably found those vibes on Splice and threw them in here. The decap kit, I mean, I think everyone knows it, but basically some of the best sounding samples this guy Decap makes. And you can just jump on Splice and sign up with a subscription and just basically download as many as you want. So that's basically the drum part. And then on top of that, the real vibe of the chorus is this bass line. Which is punk bass, a plugin I've shown multiple times. Love it. My buddy showed me it. I'm addicted to it. Sounds really, really good. One of the key things is putting it through a decent like amp simulation. This is UAD do this, but this is Plugin Alliance version. Bass amp. Sketch cassette is just great for like making the vibe slightly more organic and like taking away a bit of the like digital aspect. And then Brainworks console, we are just using this to bring out some of the high end. So we're adding 3.5K, 9 dB, which is a hell of a lot. So without it, really dull. With it, just brings out all like the character of the bass there. So that's the low end. And so this is cool because this is made from Axe Machina, which is the plugin that we use for like synthetic guitars. I like blending like real guitars and synthetic guitars, so you can kind of like overall it sounds like the whole thing's real, but you can really lock in and get really nice solid frequency chunks by faking your guitars and by like locking them in on a grid in terms of the rhythm. And then with the real guitars, that's where the flavor comes. That's where like the actual feel comes. But it makes for productions that like hit hard enough, like in an electronic way. So this kind of sits above the actual bass tone. I'm probably chopping out some of the low end overall, taking out a bit of 250 and then a bit of 2K. So that's basically getting rid of some of like the presence of it to make space for the bass part. So the bass and then this low guitar together. So low guitar you'll notice is slightly wider too. It's just thrown slightly wider, so it takes up that space, whereas the bass is pretty much down the middle. And then we've got so this is cool. So like there's a whole vocal stack under the main lead vocal that is just BVs and a vocoder. This is probably vocal synth. Yeah. Vocal synth, amazing plugin made by Isotope, I believe. But basically it allows you to make a vocoder really, really easily. You can dial up presets, you can tweak them to how you want. And what I did here is I just printed a version of the lead vocal, chopped out most of the breaths normally, and then what you can do is go on vocal synth, go in here, set it to MIDI mode, and then put the sidechain as the vocal that you've just bounced. So the vocal that you've just bounced, that's new, that you've printed through your vocal stack, so you've edited your main vocal, you're happy with it, boom, okay, now I want to vocode it. You set no output because you don't want it making any sound, you just want it feeding into the vocal synth, the vocoder, if you will. And then you have a really clean, perfect vocal that you can play around with in terms of chords. And then together with the lead vocal,
Tell me what to do and stick another pin in it. Did you dip it in gas to throw on a match? Cause all I ever do is burn up for you. Whatever I wake up with pain in my stomach, at least I know that you're a blame and thinking numbers.
see, I love that. That harmony there, to me, again, kind of like I explained in the last video, like there is the emotion to me. Like when you get to that note, thinking of us, yeah, it's like you're up late thinking of us. To me, that's where the lyric and the emotion of the melody match. And there, I think, is like one of the secret sources that I love about our music is like sometimes we land in these places where when I sing that melody, I'm like, oh, okay, that gives me inspiration to finish the track. That takes it in a different direction. And that's what also made us reproduce it, is like the original production just wasn't hitting emotionally. Like it was kind of a trap beat. It was like half time of this instead of like 1, 2. It was more like 2, 1, 2, 1. It was like boom, like that. Whereas now we just have that force of the floor, and just the energy's just way better. It's way more manic. It's way more sort of sad and emo. Anyway, these are kind of the main elements. And then I've got some stuff like up the top end I want to show you that I think is really important, kind of to do with like pedal tones. So like this is really important, obviously. Now this was added in with a hardware synth. We don't use a ton of hardware synths, but there's something called the Super 6, and it's amazing. Look it up. I think it's like about $1,500 to $2,000. But I might be wrong with that, by the way. But amazing piece of kit, really inspiring. Like I just jumped on there, found a synth that we liked, and just played something really simple, but in the grand scheme of things it adds a lot. Like without it, it's less manic, it's less like emotional to me. So like those little ear candy moments, now it comes in halfway through the first chorus as well, which gives it that lift. So there's that, and then there's a couple other things going on. So to me, those guys coming together is quite haunting. One of them is the children's choir from Omnisphere, which actually is Luke's favorite thing to put in everywhere. But I also love it, so he is forgiven for that being his favorite, because it's also my favorite. And essentially, this is also a vocal tone that we distort the shit out of. Simplon is used just to take the top end out, because I kind of want to reserve the top end for the vocal and for the elements that need presence. Like something like this needs to be felt more than heard, if that makes sense. So it's kind of back there in the background. If you take it out, you lose something, but you can't specifically be like, oh, I specifically hear that tone in the top end. It's much more like under the vocal, and the vocal is obviously a lot louder than it. And then we got some effects going on, some smashes and some white noise. Now I quite like this because there's quite a bit of low end in one of these. It's not that one, it's this one. Like this is a hell of a lot of low end to leave in. Normally I would chop that out. But I think the way that like the kick hits, the sub lands on top of it, and this hits, it just gives it like a nice bump. It feels like a really good thump at the front of the end of the choruses. And that's most of the elements. I'm just gonna jump in. Okay, so there's the halftime feel. That's what the whole song was before. But here it's just the post, and I quite like that we like have the beat switch up now. This post lead, I honestly can't remember what we started with. We would have started with like maybe something from Exhale or like a little vocal chop synth and just played that in. Da, 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 da. And then from that, distorted the hell out of it, put it in Effectrix. I probably printed it, then put it in Effectrix, where you can hear the... Do you hear the little reverse there? Da 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 da. But when it plays that note, it plays it backwards, so it has a cool like reverse effect into it. And then when it chops, That's something you can do in Effectrix too to get that stutter effect. Effectrix is an amazing plugin. Check that out by Sugar Bytes. That's basically what that was. And then it goes back to the double time. So those keys there, brilliant. We worked with Daniel James on this one, the rock star, and he basically sent over a bunch of parts while we were working together. That was one of the parts. And like there's little bits that are like jumping in and jumping out that make this song, that make the parts glue together. And like that's something super important that's like in choruses and in little moments when everything starts to drop out. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at with it. And then let me just jump to the final chorus. Whenever I wake up with pain in my stomach, at least I know that you're a brain and thinking of us. There's a cool part right here. That's kind of everything. Like how you do transitions, I think is, I've said this before, but I think it's the mark of like how you get your stuff to sound to the next level. And there's a plugin called Transit, which I just recommend so highly. It's helped me so much. And it basically has a bunch of like effects, delays, reverbs, choruses, comb filters, all this stuff. And you just dial it into taste. Like you print what you want to affect, and then you just basically turn the mix up on whatever effect you're trying to do, and like use your ears to place it where you want it and where it feels good. But what it does is it makes like something that would normally take you 5 minutes to make, like a delay into a reverb, into a chop, into a chorus, into everything. It's just got at the touch of a button. And I think it's incredible for that, for those sort of stuff. Transitions, it's amazing. And then we basically just got the guitars and the vocal to jump into. So that's playing guitar, but we've just chopped it really hard. So like we probably played it in there and was like, damn, it's not tight enough. It's not tight enough like played. We just want to chop it. But the blend of it, the tone of the real guitar and then the synthesized guitar works really nicely together. If you just listen to these guys. Yeah, to me, that blend is really aggressive, like in a nice way. And then let me just get to the lead vocal and see what we did here as our final little piece of this, guys. So pretty standard stuff here. Got auto-tune, probably quite slammed. Yeah, 13, which is pretty hard going on it. But what I like to do is I tune into auto-tune. So like I have auto-tune on, but then I try and get it as natural feeling going into it. So like I wouldn't put auto-tune and then tune after, because to me you're already adding the effect of it, and there's a way that you can kind of blend manual tuning and auto-tune to make it sound less mechanical but more perfect. Does that make sense? It's a tricky balance. Vocal production to me is like one of the most complex but important processes you can work on, and I really think there's no shortcut. It's just ears, training your ears. What different vocalists like is always different. De-essing is an art, and sometimes you've just got to like push the boundary to see what you like and see what works. So we've got noise gate here, we got channel EQ taking out some of the lows, some 200, which I've always said that I hate. De-esser going pretty hard, got the RVox pretty slammed. So that's like 12 dBs of gain reductions at times, so it's really hitting it hard. But to me, I always have liked the sound of RVox, so I'm happy working it that hard. Most compressors I would never work that hard, but RVox for some reason to me sounds either transparent or I just like the sound a lot. And there's things to be said, you know, where like sometimes someone will say it sounds really affected, but like if you are the musician and you like the effect, then fuck it, you know, go with it. Don't listen to people's opinions like that. It's bullshit. Half of them haven't done it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But this is my multi-band compressor. Again, love this preset. I literally leave it on this preset. I always have this on my vocal chain. Find it, get Pro MB, guys. It's fucking unbelievable. And then this is the thing I always change to taste. So to me, that's what clashes with the low end of the guitar. That's what clashes with the synth. That's what clashes with the bass even. And I don't need it in my vocal because I've baked in the BVs too, I've baked in all that sort of sonic complexity into that low end already. I don't need my lead vocal to be like really present down there. I need a bit there. I don't take it out completely because it'll sound thin, but I like to take that out to leave space for the other stuff there. You can't have every single element filling every frequency, otherwise your mix is going to sound like shit. And everyone's going to turn it off because it's going to sound really bad when compared with other records that sound really massive and punchy. Soothe, we're taking some S's, we're taking some harshness out. And then Pro Q3, I'm just taking a little bit more of the thing we've just discussed, guys. Basically, like that stuff, that sort of muddy stuff. Amazing compressor emulation from UAD here. I find it hard to beat it, to be honest. I'm always hitting this a little bit. Not too hard though, because it can get a bit brittle. I'm taking more low end out here. We're using the Marg up the top end. The airband is incredible. 40k with this. Like you can, it gets harsh if you push it past 8, but like anywhere up to 8 for me, like on my voice, it always works. And on other people's voices, it works too. I got the Kramer going. Now this is like a bit love hate. Sometimes I blast this and sometimes it can get a bit too like saturated sounding. But most of the time, like if you just do a little bit of it, it sounds really nice and distorted, and like you've just got a really like decent sounding preamp. We actually have nice 1073 Neve preamps here at the studio that we cut through, but it's always nice to have a bit more saturation while you're doing it. And then limiter to basically bake in that level, make sure it doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too quiet throughout the track. And that's pretty much it, guys. I think I've pretty much covered everything. We've got some effects in here, and yeah. That is literally pretty much it. So it's kind of like a bit of a mixed match of everything. Like it's got the acoustic elements, it's got electronic elements. There's a hell of a lot of effects in this one. We don't normally have this many effects, but we almost needed it to glue the two different worlds together because there's a trap beat in here, but then there's like a fall to the floor dance feel. We've got posts. We've got like full rock guitars going in the choruses. I've got like certain parts of the vocal that become quite aggressive and like not screamy, but like almost quite loud and brash. So like to get everything to fit together, because those are all different songs really, they're different worlds. Sometimes you need more effects to blend and make things feel not too jarring when you go from section to section. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it for now. We will jump into another album track next week. Super excited for you guys to see this one. And yeah, let me know any questions like always. I am excited to just be jumping into these as I'm just passionate about it and chatting about it, and I could chat to no one, which is what I'm currently doing, just chatting to my screen into this software. But I'm enjoying it. All right, take care, guys. We will chat soon.